We are live. Welcome to One Foot Down, a college fantasy football podcast on the Fantasy and Frames Network. This is episode 2, season 2. I'm Chris Battistel. With me is my co-host extraordinaire, Aidan Weingartner. Aidan, happy Memorial Day, brother. How was your long weekend?
It was great. I had some hot dogs and hamburgers, and I'm ready to roll.
Nice. Did you put the hamburger on the hot dog or the hot dog on the hamburger and try to create some new kind of concoction?
No, I just did it separately. I just did it by itself.
the good old traditional way. Love to see it, man.
Yeah.
You put ketchup on your hot dog?
I did barbecue sauce, actually.
Okay, ketchup on your hot dog will get you canceled in some places, buddy. So you got to be careful with that answer. Today's episode, we are talking some potential freshmen that you should be targeting in your CFF drafts, getting you ready for the season. We won't talk the big three, I guess, or big two. Bryce Underwood. Yeah, let me start by saying Bryce Underwood is a draftable target. He is the potential starter for Michigan. I don't know if they've named their guy yet, but he's looking like the QB1 for the Wolverines heading into the season. So if you want to take Bryce Underwood as your QB4, QB5, if you're stacking up QBs, by all means, grab him as well as electric wide receiver out of Oregon, Decorian Moore. He's been going in the teens. The most recent draft I've been a part of, I've seen him go, I think it was like the 8th round. So he's been all over the place this draft season so far. He's one of the few freshmen that you're going to want to target absolutely to put on your roster as either, your wide receiver 6. He's going to have the potential to have some big days. Of course, this all depends on the status and arm of Dante Moore, the potential QB1 for the Oregon Ducks. So what we're going to do here is give you some instant impact freshmen, guys that we think are going to start week 1 or give you some production week 1. And then second half of the show, we're going to give you guys that we believe could see a role or find the field halfway or towards championship weekend for your fantasy football rosters. Let's head to the chat before we get into our players here. Aidan, Jamie says, sup bros, sup Jamie, thanks for tuning in. He also says ketchup on your hot dog means you need to wait a week to hit it raw. I fell into that one. Rob Thomas, follow Rob Thomas, evening gang. Evening, Rob. Thanks for tuning in to the show. So, Aidan, let's get right into it, man. No more of the small talk. Let's give the people what they want and some freshmen to potentially fear for the 2025 season. We're starting off with the quarterbacks. Oh, wait, before we do that, skipped right over the I wanted to just touch on the it's all good, Jamie. I just wanted to touch on the top notable freshmen from last season to kind of give you an idea of what these guys can produce on their team. So, of course, Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver out of Ohio State, was a stud. He was being drafted in the late teens, mid-teens, sometimes even in the 20s. He absolutely smashed his ADP, was the value of drafts last season. He put up 308 fantasy points, averaging 19.2 full PPR fantasy points per game. Right now, he's being drafted in most drafts as the wide receiver 1 for college fantasy, just ahead of Jordan Tyson. Just below him last year, wide receiver Ryan Williams, Alabama. He averaged 15.3 fantasy points per game. Cam Coleman out of Auburn had some great games. TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco from Clemson combined put up 280 fantasy points. Looking at the running back position, Caden Durham from LSU had a productive year. Ahmad Hardy, who transferred to Mizzou, 228 fantasy points, averaged 19 full PPR points per game. You also had guys like Fluff Bothwell, who is now transferred, Isaac Brown out of Louisville, who is a first-round CFF pick in most drafts that I've been a part of, Antoine Raymond, who came on hot at the end of the year for Rutgers, and then some quarterbacks, there wasn't many. Dylan Raiola from Nebraska had a decent year, and DJ Lagway, who was almost unstartable last year, had a couple of decent games, but is looking to build on his 2024 season. So there is the potential. And I would say most of those guys last season, at least for early drafts, went undrafted. There was Ryan Williams went drafted, Jeremiah Smith went drafted, I believe Cam Coleman went drafted, but for the running backs like Ahmad Barty, Fluff Bothwell, a lot of these guys were drafted in best ball drafts. So you have the potential to take some of these guys at the back end of your drafts to potentially be these studs and guys that could help you win your leagues. Before we get into the freshmen here, just wanted to touch in the Scott Fish Bowl. Tadpole Bowl is live. Head over to scottfishbowl.com/college. That's scottfishbowl.com/college to throw your hat in the ring and be part of the first ever Tadpole Bowl hosted by Fantasy Cares and, of course, the great Scott Fish and Eric Froton, one of the GOATs of college fantasy football. Without further ado, Aidan, let's hop right into it, brother. We're going to start with quarterbacks. You didn't feel like you had a quarterback that you could really pinpoint to give you early, but that's fine. It's hard to do with the amount, especially this early as well. It's only spring. It's going to be early enrollees that are going to be pushing these starting players for playing time. So it's going to be hard to pinpoint a quarterback this early in the year. But I got one, and it's Malik Washington out of Maryland. His current competition is UCLA transfer Justin Martin and Christian Martin. Looking at Justin Martin's profile, one career start last year against Penn State where he put up 176 passing yards on 30 attempts. He's a three-star QB with no real experience. I tried to go back to his high school playing stats, and even that information was limited. I can only find the 3 games that he played in high school on Max Preps where he put up 222 yards and no passing touchdowns. The rushing ability for Justin Martin also is non-existent. Christian Martin, to me, Aidan, is going to be the main competition for Malik Washington heading into fall. He was the MVP of the spring game where he put up 269 yards and 4 TD passes. But I believe Malik Washington is going to enter Maryland as the QB1 in fall. He's a 4-star prospect, hometown boy. So he's already going to have a leg up with the fans in that perspective. He's thrown for 74 touchdowns, rushing for 19 in high school, 3-year starter, averaging 198 passing yards per game. He's already winning on paper. Malik Washington is. In the spring game, he completed 12 of 18 passes for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you just hop on X and you type in Malik Washington in the search bar, you will see some of the dimes that he was dropping in the spring game. And that is part of what you want out of your quarterback, the ability for him to be able to create the big plays, to get the points through the air, as well as on his feet. He can, when the play breaks down, he's going to be able to scramble and use his legs, which is fantasy point production. Maryland has been non-committal to naming the starting guy as of right now, which is great for an incoming freshman. The fact that they haven't named their starting quarterback means that they want to see what these guys are going to be able to do in fall. I believe it's a 2-horse race between Christian Martin and Malik Washington. Looking ahead to their first 3 games, it could be a prime spot to start the early enrollee. They got Florida Atlantic week 1, NIU week 2, and Towson in week 3. His current ADP is undrafted. And O in the chat says he's just a tad bit worried about the players around him. Do you have any insight on Malik Washington, Aidan?
Yeah, I love this call here. I was actually thinking this before you took him, and I didn't want to force anything else. But I fully expect, like Justin Martin, he's been in college for a few years now, but he hasn't really shown anything. Christian Martin, there's a nice floor there, but no ceiling. If you want to go with the ceiling play, it is Malik Washington. And barring anything unforeseen, I do think we'll see a true freshman start here for Maryland, for those fans in Malik Washington. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So, I think he's got a good opportunity to start. To O's point, where he said he's a tad bit worried about the pieces around him. The O-line is going to be rough. I think that they're really going to struggle across the board for Maryland. And then the pass-catching weapons, they had Jaleel Farouk come in from, I believe it was Oklahoma, and Caleb Webb, and then Octavian Smith across the board right now as their potential starting wide receivers. So it's not looking good for him to have the elite pass-catching weapons, but with his ability to use his legs, that's what I want out of a late round draft pick. So Malik Washington is one of our freshmen to fear at the quarterback position. So ultimately, it's Bryce Underwood right now and Malik Washington. Going to the running back position, Aidan, you got a guy that I considered picking because I think he has a great opportunity to gain some playing time where he's at, man. Who's your freshman to fear running back?
Yeah, I'm really excited for Gideon Davidson going to Clemson. I'm looking at this offense right now. All he has to, after the departure of Phil Maffa, all he has to beat out is Jay Haynes. Like, I think you'd agree, like, that's not really, like, anything significant. Like, no disrespect to Jay Haynes, but, like, it's not going to be overly difficult to beat him out. And we know once Dabo Swinney sees a running back he likes, he will feed that running back a lot in his offense. You saw what he did with Phil Maffa last year. Asterisk, when Phil Maffa was healthy 2 years ago. What he did with Will Shipley. This is going to be a high-powered offense with Cade Klubnik, so there'll be a lot of touchdown opportunities. And I'm not as high on Clemson's pass catchers as other people are. I like the two freshmen, but I'm not as high on Antonio Williams as other people are. I'm not sure if that's considered a hot take or not. So I see a clear runway for Gideon Davidson here. Maybe Jay Haynes is the what do you want to call it? The vet, a more experienced guy in the room for the first 2 or 3 weeks, but I think Gideon Davidson can unseat him once we come October and so on. So I'm really excited for his freshman year.
Yeah, I like the potential opportunity that he can see out of that backfield. I know Adam Randall, though, has been gaining some heat, some traction as a potential starting running back. He's been taking snaps at the position for Clemson through spring, and I think Fantrax just gave him that running back tag as well. So another situation to watch there in Clemson. Freshman to fear, Gideon Davidson, running back, Clemson Tiger. I got one here that's maybe a little outside the box. I was going to go with Usmani Chroma, possibly Deshaun Ford out of the University of Louisiana Monroe. There's a couple great options, but I went with a kind of dark horse. The transfer portal kind of hit me in my gut a little bit with this guy, with the guy who came in. But I'm going with Carson Cox, UCLA. Weighing in 6 feet, 190 pounds, according to 247sports.com. So he's probably up somewhere around 205 right now. He had the potential to be a day one impact starter with UCLA. Speed, power, pass catching are the trio of ingredients that leads to running back success for fantasy football players. And Carson Cox has all three of those skills in his bag. Looking back at his high school production, the 4-star running back put up 4,100 plus rushing yards and 72 rushing touchdowns across 4 seasons, 29 all-purpose touchdowns just last season alone. He's a track athlete as well, posting an 11.22 100-meter time. The production profile is there for Cox, but can you replicate that at the next level is going to be the question. The competition, Jalen Berger is there, nothing to really worry about. Transfer Anthony Woods, 1,000-yard rusher just 2 years ago, is who I think he's going to be battling for that RB2, RB3 position. Right now, I think it's Cal transfer Javian Thomas, who's going to be propped up as the day one starter for UCLA. Thomas had a productive season last year. I believe he led the Golden Bears in rushing, 626 rush yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, averaged 10.39 fantasy points per game. UCLA went out purposefully to seek Javian Thomas to fill their holes in the backfield, but Carson was good at finding the end zone in their spring showcase. So the spring showcase is not a full game. They're going to put these guys in situational reps to see what they can do in the situations where he was put at the task to score. He got 2 touchdowns. So big ups to Carson Cox. I'm expecting him to be at least the running back 2 for UCLA. I was hoping for him to be the running back 1, but the Javian Thomas thing kind of threw a wrench in that plan for me. So his current ADP is undrafted. So Carson Cox is a player that you can scoop up at the back end of your draft. So freshman to fear so far: quarterback Malik Washington, running backs Gideon Davidson and Carson Cox. We're going to go off here at wide receiver. Aidan, what do you got, man?
Yeah, instant impact wide receiver. I'm going to go over to Ole Miss and pick out Caleb Cunningham of Ole Miss. I know that – let me start with this, back up a little. I am really high – I don't know about you, but I'm really high in Austin Simmons leading the charge here at quarterback. I think he's going to be very good for this year and beyond. So I know for this wide receiver room that Ole Miss brought in Deshaun Stribling, but I think that actually helps a true freshman like Caleb Cunningham. So he's not forced, at least for the first, half of the season or so, he's not forced to be the wide receiver 1 right off the bat, like Jeremiah Smith was. I like the presence of Deshaun Stribling, and that's going to free up Caleb Cunningham even more. So because of my very, very optimism in Austin Simmons, because of the presence of Stribling taking away defenders, I am going to go with Caleb Cunningham here as a freshman to fear that I'm very excited about in this offense. So,
yeah, love that pick.
I think he's going to
as well. So,
I think he's going to fit right in. I'm not saying he'll be this guy right away, but I think in terms of the downfield ability, you could see him fitting into that Trey Harris role from the last couple of years.
Like that call. And that's what you want. That's what you want in that Ole Miss offense. You want that player that's going to replace the guy that was uber productive the year before or before him. And Trey Harris was that. Trey Harris was a stud. Yeah, when he was healthy, of course. So a great call there with Cunningham. I'm going to go to South Carolina and pick Malik Clark. Former FSU commit, 6'2", 190 pounds, early enrollee, like most of these guys are. Clark is a high-speed perimeter playmaker who could go up and make those contested catches, something that I think South Carolina kind of lacked a little bit with last year. He won the Upper State 100-meter dash as a junior, running a 10.55, so the kid is a burner. I can only find his high school stats from his senior year: 68 receptions, 976 receiving yards, and 10 receiving TDs. That puts him at 14.4 yards per reception. The competition in South Carolina is pretty much non-existent. This is where it looks great for Clark to find a role on this offense and ultimately produce fantasy points for the people drafting him. South Carolina didn't bring in anyone via the portal at the position, and that's a great sign. That's a sign to you saying that the coaching staff kind of likes what they got in the current room. That, or they just couldn't afford anybody. They didn't want to pay the $2 million for Trevor Pena from Syracuse. But Neither team was able to really produce much in the spring game, but Malik Clark did catch the game-winning 16-yard touchdown. So I believe that Malik Clark is going to end up ultimately being the wide receiver one for the Gamecocks when all is said and done this year. He's got Gerard Brown in front of him, Nick Harbor. I believe Brown is ultimately the guy that he's got to beat out. And Brown only put up 244 receiving yards last year after transferring from Coastal Carolina. So it also depends on South Carolina building on their pass attack from what they had last year. They were outside of the top 100 in pass attempts per game. I think they were only averaging 28 pass attempts per game. So if they can get that up to that 32, 35, 36 mark pass attempts per game, I think it's going to spell a good recipe for success for Malik Clark. I don't think there was a wide receiver that hit over 500 yards last year for South Carolina. So that aspect is not a great visual, but the fact that maybe they didn't have a player like Malik Clark last year to take that offense above and beyond could be a great thing for the opportunity that he could see in that wide receiver room. So freshmen to fear, wide receivers, Malik Clark. And who did you have there, Aidan?
Caleb Cunningham, Ole Miss.
Caleb Cunningham, Ole Miss. So just to recap all of our freshmen to fear, the players that we think are going to have an instant impact coming in early into the season. Quarterbacks, of course, Bryce Underwood, Malik Washington. Running backs, Gideon Davidson, Carson Cox, and wide receiver, of course, DeCorian Moore, Caleb Cunningham, and Malik Clark. Woo! Some big names there, man. Most guys going undrafted as well. Or the ADP is like 28th round, 29th round. Guys that you could potentially steal from your league mates that could end up being top 50 at their position. All right. Let's get into some midseason guys, Aidan. Some guys that we believe could have impact halfway through the season, 3/4 of the way through the season. Guys that we feel like could potentially be league winners for your fantasy teams. I'll let you lead off with this one, Aidan.
Yeah, this is going to be a spicy one because I know this is a big name in the recruiting circles, obviously a high 4-star, and that is Florida Gators wide receiver Dallas Wilson. But I do have my reasons to pump the brakes just a little bit. He's obviously still very talented. Number one, DJ Lagway. I'm very excited about him, but he loves to use his legs a lot, loves to run. So how much passing volume will be going on in that Gators offense? Number two, we talked about on our first episode a couple weeks ago that J. Michael Sturdivant is a transfer I'm keeping my eyes on. So what if that Florida Gators staff wants to go with more experienced guys to have Lagway throwing to, like a J. Michael Sturdivant, like a Trey Wilson? And I'm not saying Dallas Wilson is phased out, but maybe those experienced guys get more run. But I think by the midseason point, Dallas Wilson will be showing enough flashes where, like, okay, this guy needs to be on the roster. This guy needs to be on the field at all times. And listen, Trey Wilson and J. Michael Sturdivant aren't exactly the picture of health either. We know what happened last year with Trey Wilson specifically. So I'm going to go with that just because I think there's more experienced options in the room ahead of him. But by midseason, I think he'll be ready to roll and win you some CFF championships, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big spring game as well. I think he was the leading wide receiver in that spring game, if I'm not mistaken. Was he not?
Yeah, he was. I think you're right.
Yeah, so the fact that he's able to already find a role and produce on that offense, and the job, the room is wide open for Florida. It's anyone's job for the taking. I like it, man. I like the call with Dallas Wilson there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was another fella out of Florida, freshman wide receiver.
Oh, Vernell Brown.
Vernell Brown, yeah. Vernell Brown III. That's right.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Another guy that I think could potentially, because of how open that room is, could potentially find a role on that offense, man. Good call.
Thank you.
Good call.
Thank you.
All right. I got another wide receiver that I feel like could find a way onto the field and do some damage for your fantasy teams. in 2025, and that is Quanell Farrakhan Jr. from the Colorado Buffaloes. The Buffaloes wide receiver room is currently set up with transfer wide receiver Joseph Williams and the two Milliers, Omarion and Draylon. I believe that's going to be the core three for Colorado heading into the season. Behind those, though, sit two absolute stud playmakers in Quentin Gibson and Quanell Farrakhan. Both can be impactful in their first year at Colorado, but Farrakhan is the player that I want to focus on here. All district, 4-star wide receiver, 36 receptions, 678 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns last year, averaging 18.8 yards per reception. And he wasn't playing against tomato cans, Aidan. He was playing in Texas 6A division, facing some of the greatest competition in all of high school sports. He's a great route runner. He's got speed. He's got the hands. He's a player that's also played at all three phases of the game. He's played offense, DB. He's played on special teams as well. Going through the reports coming out of Colorado Spring, Farrakhan has been a baller. Another player that you can go onto the X machine, type in his name, and you will find highlight catch after highlight catch from Colorado Spring practices. Why he could become a valuable player midway, the Buffs could struggle, man, which could lead to the potential opportunity spike for Farrakhan and other younger players in this offense. His ability on the field is going to make it hard for Coach Prime to keep him off of it. The back end of their schedule is promising. The last 4 games, they go on to include Arizona Wildcats, the West Virginia Mountaineers, a week 1 playoff bye week, and then they finish it off with Arizona State and Kansas State. A lot of big game potential fantasy points there for a highlight reel wide receiver like Quanell Farrakhan. It's going to be tough for Colorado to keep this kid off the field. So both wide receivers, I think, have the potential to do some damage midway through the season. That's Quentin Gibson and Quanell Farrakhan, Aidan.
I love that call. I do agree that Colorado is going to take a step back, so maybe they want to give their freshman talent showcase, if you will. So I really like the call there.
Yeah, I mean, they set up their current quarterback rooms with a great wide receiver room. Joseph Williams from Tulsa was electric last year. He put up some big points. Seeing him go there, I'm not too sure who's going to be the starter for Colorado. I know Juju Lewis looked pretty good. Caden Salter struggled a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do under center. I mean, That's ultimately what's going to determine or that's ultimately who's going to determine what these quarterbacks do. What these wide receivers do on the field. So we got Dallas Wilson, got Quanell Farrakhan. Who else you got?
So for my second and last one, I went with running back Tavion Swint from UCF. Now, I know right now this kind of looks like a crowded running back room. I do like Miles Montgomery, kind of a sleeper / late dart throw and draft, but we really haven't seen anything. And I know they're bringing Jaden Nixon, but how does that translate? Come from the group of 5 to the power 4. You're always skeptical of that, obviously. And I know, obviously, no one's going to be RJ Harvey. Those are just electric numbers from last year. But on the positive side, this is at least a trusted system with Scott Frost. So I feel like if Tavion Swint, halfway through his freshman year, can take over this backfield, he would be someone you would be really excited about for this year, especially in this trusted system.
Yeah, and UCF has been known to produce stud running backs for fantasy football players. So the room is a bit busy, but like you said, if he can find his role in that offense and at least leapfrog one of either Miles Montgomery or, it's going to pain me to say it, Aidan, because I'm a Jaden Nixon truther.
I know, yeah.
But if he can jump either one of those guys, there's a lot of potential there for him to be a midway monster, man. Yeah, love the call there with Tavion Swint from UCF. Now, I got one more, And this is the son of a great NFL wide receiver, the son of Plaxico Burress, Elijah Burress, out of Notre Dame. He made some noise early in camp as an early enrollee at Notre Dame. They were dealing with some injuries at the position throughout spring, so that gave Elijah Burress the opportunity to get on the field, to play with the ones, and he didn't relinquish that opportunity at all. He's a four-star wide receiver. He put up 960 yards and 15 touchdowns as a senior, averaging an elite 25.9 yards per reception, 13 plus 100 receiving yards in his high school career. He's got Jordan Faison ahead of him on the depth chart, but he's been the belle of the ball all through spring camp for the Fighting Irish. Nickel corner Devonta Smith, who transferred over from Alabama, was quoted as saying he's going to be a great receiver. Cornerback Carson Hobbs said he noticed them every day. He said he's going to be good, really good. So these are things that his counterparts from across the field have noticed. They are noticing Elijah Burress when he's on the field. The Notre Dame wide receiver room is a bit busy. They got Malachi Fields there. Will Pauling transferred in from Wisconsin. Jaden Greathouse is still there. So there's going to be he's going to need some things to go right in order for him to garner any kind of playing time for the Fighting Irish, for Notre Dame this year. That's why I think he could be a potential midway stud for fantasy managers. So if you're playing in any kind of redraft league for college fantasy and you have the ability to take advantage of the waiver systems, this is a guy that halfway through the season that you're most likely going to end up having on your roster if all goes right for Elijah Burress. So our midway monsters are Dallas Wilson, wide receiver out of Florida, Quanell Farrakhan, wide receiver out of Colorado, Tavion Swint, running back UCF, and Elijah Burress, a wide receiver out of Notre Dame. Aidan, do you have any honorable mentions?
No, honestly. So I think just looking over this freshman class, last year's freshman class was pretty fun. We went over at the beginning, so I don't think any of the talent is going to surpass the talent of last year. I could be wrong. I just don't think comparatively that, it's going to pass last year's talent, but we'll see.
Do you think that DeCorian Moore has a shot at beating Jeremiah Smith's points total for fantasy football this year?
I've been thinking about this a while since I saw the question, and it's tricky, right? Because obviously DeCorian Moore, highest recruit of the class, obviously, and Jeremiah Smith, highest recruit of his class, respectively. I'm going to say no, although I really like Dante Moore. I'm really high on him for this year and beyond. We still have to, it's kind of we have to see it first and right. So we haven't really seen him do anything. And Will Howard was such an established commodity last year for Jeremiah Smith right out the gate in college football. Yeah. I really like Dante Moore, but we have to see it first. So I'm going to say no. I think it's going to be close, but I'm just going to say no for now.
Yeah, I could see him putting up more of a Ryan Williams type of season where he averages maybe 15 points a game, has those big boom weeks, maybe has some weeks where he doesn't do too good. But again, another situation where the wide receiver room is wide open. Evan Stewart is a guy that a lot of Devy circles, a lot of C2C circles like to prop up a little bit, but he's disappeared for Oregon.
I feel like he's never reached his potential. I feel like
no, he had that that freshman year he was pretty good. Then ever since then he's fallen off a cliff. He had that one good game against Boise State last year, but other than that was it. That was it. So Trayshawn Holden's gone. Tez Johnson's gone. So it's wide open for DeCorian Moore to produce. He's just got to hope that Dante Moore can be a sliver, a fraction of what Dylan Gabriel was for Oregon in the passing game last year, man.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just give us some hope that when we're drafting a player like DeCorian Moore that we can see the pathway to production for him. I got one honorable mention, tight end, Christian Abney out of Illinois, transferred from Ball State. If you can hit on tight ends late without having to reach for one of these mid-round guys, that has a lot of potential to do good for your fantasy team. Some of the tight ends late that you were able to draft last year turned out to be league winners. Of course, there was guys like Harold Fannin averaging wide receiver 1 numbers last year. Him and Tyler Warren were studs, but after that, I mean, the production dropped off quite a bit for the position. So if Christian Abney can find a great role in that as the pass-catching tight end for Illinois, there's potential there as a late-round pick to produce for your fantasy teams. In best ball drafts where you're drafting 30, I'm a 10-10-6 4 drafters, so 10 running back, 10 wide receiver, 6 quarterback, 4 tight end. So if I can pick up a guy like Christian Abney as my 4th tight end with the potential that he has in that offense for Illinois, I mean, Illinois is not a prolific offense as it is, but if he can be a 6 to 8 point tight end weekly guy for me, I'll take that in the back end of my draft. So, Aidan, buddy, any other players, any other freshmen you think that the world needs to know about?
No, I feel like we covered all the high recruits. We covered a few sleepers. This is a real fun conversation. Taking a look at the next generation of college football field and seeing who will be the stars right away.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Of course, there's going to be some guys that show up late in the season, some guys that in fall just outplay their competition and take over their roles for their programs. But man, these are some of the guys that we're looking forward to drafting right now. So,
for sure.
Well, we appreciate everyone that tuned in. Make sure you like the stream, subscribe to the channel. If you took this in on any kind of podcast format, rate and review. Your help goes a long way for us here on One Foot Down on the Fantasy in Frames Network. As of course, go to scottfishbowl.com/college and play in the first ever Tadpole Bowl, a giant college fantasy football tournament. I believe there's going to be I think he had over 600 signups or 500 signups or something like that. So the competition is going to be fierce, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm in the Ohio State division, so there's a lot of great contenders in that one. Aidan, let the people know where they can find you. Let them know where they can find all your work. Let them know what you got going on inside of fantasy football, outside of fantasy football, brother. The frame is yours.
Yeah, you can find my work. First of all, you can follow me on Twitter if you want to follow along with me at AWeingartner13. I've been releasing one article per week lately at fantasyandframes.com.
Right.
And yeah, I'm on the Dynasty show, of course, with Jorge and JT every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where after these guys leave college, we're looking at their dynasty value from an NFL perspective.
Yeah, man. You've been absolutely putting in the work, brother. Great addition to the Fantasy in Frames family, man. I enjoy having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to our next episode where I think I want to do a mock draft, Aidan. I think I want to do a mock draft, man.
First one of the year.
With the Tadpole Bowl coming around, drafts hitting up soon. I think I want to do a mock draft. The Tadpole Bowl is P4 only as well, so we can hit up a P4 only mock draft. And I think they're including Notre Dame. So Elijah Burris could be on your radar, man. That's it for us. I'm Chris Battistel.